scare you too much. Because I had a young lady that, well, two young ladies that were in a group that I spoke to last night, was their second time hearing something from me. They were going to Australia this time. Last time they went to Nigeria.
Yeah.
And so they were both petrified last time I talked to them. So they felt better.
Ron, what do you suggest for terrorist groups in these countries?
Yeah, you know, duck.
This is being recorded, I'd like to remind you that.
Yeah. Oh, darn it. I've got to behave. I refer back to this. I put it up. It's not really from anything other than for you to see kind of where I'm getting my information from. This Tribex is a company that takes the CDC, the State Department, the Canadian, Australian equivalents, and the World Health Organization and puts it all into one report for me. Because frequently we'll find in international travel, the CDC will say one thing, the State Department will say something else, WHO will say something else, so we pay them to figure out what's true. And then I can punch in however many countries I want and come up with a good plan for you guys. I don't follow it blindly, and I say that because it'll say up here, for instance, that you need rabies. I don't recommend rabies. You're not going to be at high enough risk for that. In 5.5 years, I've recommended that to 2 people. So just know that if I don't cover it, it's because I don't feel it's going to be pertinent to your trip. I prepare you for worst case scenario in a sense, so that you can make good decisions while you're making your decision making. If I give you the minimum, then you don't necessarily think about the others, and it's not a bad thing. That's typically what professors do because I want people to go along. Just know that it's not when I talk about security stuff, it's not, oh, you're going to get mugged when you go there. All right, you can get mugged when you walk out the door here. So just keep those things in mind. I break it up in a couple different sections. The first one being vaccine preventable diseases. She's got a paper with your name on it that we need to get out. What I've done is I've looked at your immunization records that you have provided when you were a freshman, most likely, and then I apply it to what the recommendations for the country are. In addition to some of these, for instance, meningitis isn't up here, but we as a university officially recommend that for any international travel. Doesn't matter where you're going. In part because it's important in international travel as a risk, but also 4.5 years ago we had a young man who was studying in Spain from ASU who passed away from meningitis. So it is something that we take pretty seriously. And there are some brand new recommendations that have just come across from CDC 2 weeks ago about meningitis. So we try and incorporate the latest and greatest for you. Hepatitis A, when you get these forms, this is just a copy of my worksheet that I use to kind of keep up with who needs what, when, and where. And so you'll see a column, the far left-hand column is a list of all the vaccinations for domestic and travel. The next column is the column specifically for Ecuador. We are going to Ecuador, right?
We are.
Okay. And then the second to the far right is a list of the vaccines that I have record of. Keep in mind that if you were a freshman and you turned in your records, and now you're a junior, and sometime last year you got a Hep A, I may not have record of that unless you turned it in to us. And most people don't remember to do that. So Hep A is the first one that is on your list. Hep A is a foodborne pathogen. It is, well, it's pretty important just in general because about 3 weeks ago we had an exposure down in Charlotte of over 250 cases, which is a small exposure. This past summer we had one that was 550 from a Papa John's. So it's something that in just a few more years will be required to come to college. It is a 2-shot series. If you have an X in the has, that means you have both of them. If you have an X in the needs, that means you need both of them. If you have a ×1 and a ×1, it means you have one and you need one. If you haven't had any, then you won't have time to get them both in before you go, and that's okay because you get about a 95% coverage with your first one. you get 100% coverage with your second one for 20 years to life. So it is, in the vaccine world, it is one of the few that we can say is 100% effective. It would really stink to get one and then not get the second one and then somehow contract hepatitis A, and it can be potentially deadly. So just keep that in mind. Also, these are recommendations only. None of these are required. I won't recommend anything to you that I don't think you need. For instance, the rabies. I try and look at everybody, if you were my kid, because I've got one in college your age, what would I want someone to tell my kid? Well, don't tell them what they might need, tell them what they need. So that's what I'm doing for you. Hepatitis B is the next one. Hepatitis B is a bloodborne pathogen. Are you guys all in business? Everyone? Okay. So for you guys, 3 is all you'll ever need. If you get into healthcare or some of the other things, then you sometimes have to do more. But for the average person, 3 is all you need. I think everybody, does anybody in here not have your Hep B's? I think everybody did. Okay, we won't spend any more time on that then. Flu. How many people have never had a flu shot in their entire life? All right, there's always one. I do recommend it. Now, of course, this year we didn't do so good in matching up the strains. But having said that, it is about 33% effective. The flu season is, technically the season is over now. It was just declared over last week for our region. However, it doesn't mean it's still not out there. We had one of our doctor's child was just diagnosed with it Friday. So it's still out there, but as an epidemic, it's over. It would really, really stink for you to get exposed to it a couple of days before you were to leave. Of course, I could go in your place then. I'd be happy to do that. Have a passport, we'll travel.
Yeah, by the way, we bought the tickets, and there's a fee to change, but we did not buy any trip insurance. So you get sick, you pretend to be healthy and get on that plane, because there's really no other option for you. You can't get out.
There are a couple of myths out there. One is being that you can get the flu from the flu shot. Biologically impossible. You can get it from the flu mist, which goes up in the nose, but most of those flu mists have expired now. Last week was the last week. We do have a few, like 50 doses maybe left of the flu for our travelers. The flu season in Ecuador is year-round, though. Now, what strains are in Ecuador, I don't have a clue. I could tell you every strain that's been diagnosed in the United States, but I don't know what they're having there. Typically, we see about the same thing. It tends to be pandemic and covers all the same countries. Typhoid. There are 2 options for typhoid. There's an injectable option and there's an oral option. The oral option is good for 5 years. It's $35 as of today. I was just told today that they're going up on their price. So we bought a bunch to hopefully keep the price down for y'all. It's a little inconvenient in taking because you have to take 1 capsule every other day for 7 days. 4 capsules in total. It has to be taken on an empty stomach. It can cause some stomach upset. But I am a huge wuss when it comes to my stomach, and I tolerated it. So I figure if I can, you can. In 5 years, we've had 4 people that I know of that have not tolerated it. And it's $35. The injectable is $55. It's only good for 2 years. And every time you get a dose of injectable, you lose a little bit of coverage. So you're only starting at about 70% to begin with. So losing coverage doesn't sound like a good thing. If you think you're never ever going to travel again, then maybe the shot is a good option for you. If you think you want to travel again and more, then I would recommend you look at the oral. A few exceptions are if you can't remember to take medicine, because it's really important that you take it when you're supposed to take it, or if you have a history of ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease or something that is gastrointestinal in nature to begin with. We don't know exactly how high it's going to go up. Right now, I've got 18 doses in student health. I've got 20 more on the way. There was a national shortage, which usually means when there's a national shortage, they do that so they can raise the price. So we were anticipating it, but as of right now, that's the price. The injectable we don't think is going to change any, and you can get that at any point. You know, we always tell people 7 days before is kind of your minimum. Although if you were leaving tomorrow, we'd still give it to you because it's better than not having it at all. The oral, you're almost out of time because you need to have completed it 10 days. Let's see, let me make sure the math is right. You have to not finish it any later than 10 days from your travel date. So 17 days from your actual arrival time if you're doing an anti-malarial. And usually if there's typhoid, there's, not always, but usually there's malaria involved as well. And so, and for you guys there is, because an anti-malarial cannot get too close to the typhoid because it kills the vaccine. So, now, whether or not, we'll look at the map as to where you guys are going to be to see specifically what. But there is malaria in the country. I can't remember exactly where you guys are going to be.
Yeah, because when you and I sat and talked about it in your office, we said that malaria probably is not going to be an issue, or dengue fever.
I couldn't remember. Yeah, dengue and chikungunya and some of these others definitely, but I was thinking that that was the case, but I just couldn't remember. And if that is in fact, when we pull it up and double check, they're in the process. I think we had already checked. They had already updated your map, because they do it about once every 2 years, and this is the year they're updating all the malaria maps. Then you have a little bit more time to get your typhoid in, and so it would be 10 days before instead of 7 days. So, yellow fever. Let me pull up the yellow fever map, and then we can look at the typhoid, or the malaria as well. Here's, okay, here's the yellow fever map. And I just went blank. Remind me where you guys are going.
Ecuador.
No, I mean you're going into Quito, so you'll be up here. And how far off of Quito are you going?
And we're staying in town.
You're
We're
staying
just
in
there
town
for
the
a
whole
day,
time.
and then we're off to those islands up there. On the
Okay.
other left.
And are you flying directly from Quito to the islands, or you're going to?
Directly.
Okay. So for you guys, from a risk factor, yellow fever is going to be minimal to none. Anything that is in the dark yellow is considered a high risk. Anything that is the dots is considered low risk. And then anything in white is considered no risk. Keep in mind, when I say there's none, or little to none, I can't give you a guarantee that you couldn't possibly be exposed, because obviously it's on both sides of you. However, risk-wise, it's going to be really, really low. Having said that, if you, at the end of the summer, have a chance to go to Peru for a trip, Peru may not let you in the country if you've gone to a country with yellow fever and have a stamp in your passport, unless you've already had the yellow fever vaccine. So that's one of those things that they don't really tell you on CDC websites and all that to think about. Is there are countries that will ban you or bar you from coming in, or hold you at their customs for, I think it's 21 days. So which for most people that's your entire trip.
Kevin, I have a WHO card, a World Health Organization card. What are these guys going to have if they get vaccinated?
The yellow one is what we were talking about. We have those. We're a certified yellow fever site, so if you decide you want to get your yellow fever, we have it in stock. There's only 2 of us that are allowed to give it, so you might want to let me know ahead of time that you're coming, just to make sure.
Or any of them. I'm just, what proof are they going to have that they've had any of these, you know, oral or injectable vaccinations?
For the yellow fever, it has to be on a yellow card. It has to be. It's only valid on a yellow card.
Okay.
And you get that. You can get that through us.
Okay.
For the rest of the vaccines, there's no proof required.
Okay.
I do recommend carrying it. I carry mine with me anytime I'm traveling overseas, because you never know when a government's going to get a wild hair. We'll print you our immunization sheet, which is a government government official immunization record that is accepted, and knock on wood, so far we have not had a single country not accept that.
Thank you.
But we could give you, the yellow fever will be on that, but it's not valid on that. It has to be on that yellow card. So, because it has to have our official stamp and all that kind of stuff. Any questions about yellow fever?
How long is that vaccination good for?
As of today, it's good for 10 years.
Okay.
We're expecting, World Health Organization has put out a recommendation that it be good once per lifetime. And it's up to each individual country to determine whether they want to follow those standards or not. As of last check, and it was sometime last week, there's not a single country that has adopted that standard yet. But we do anticipate before too long that that's going to be the case. Probably, likely, if you were to get it, by the time you guys have your 10-year mark, where you would need it again, it should be. Now, I don't know how long ago it was for yours, but...
I'm gonna check today.
But
Probably about 10 years.
Yeah. Since we're on the maps, let's look at malaria. Okay, so obviously you're in Quito. Once again, white is considered a low to no risk area. You're going to be flying straight to the Galapagos, which is also low to no risk. If you were going to be doing some side travels, I would say we might want to talk, but because you're not, I really don't think there's a need for it. There are some of the antimalarials that are pretty caustic to the system. We've actually stopped carrying one because it has been known to cause psychotic breaks in soldiers. So we thought, well, maybe we ought to not use it. But if you are concerned about that, then let me know, and we'll talk about it kind of offline so that we can answer your questions and help you. But if I was going, I wouldn't take it. So, and I've been nicknamed, well, among other things that I can't repeat, Boy Scout, because I like to be completely prepared for the worst case scenario. Any questions so far? The best way not to get malaria or some of these other ones that we're going to talk about is bug spray. Now, I promised I would give a disclaimer.
Yes.
DEET, from a standpoint of a bug repellent, is by far the best that you can apply to yourself from an effectiveness standpoint, a proven effectiveness standpoint. In California, DEET is all but banned because DEET has been known to cause cancer in lab animals. Now, having said all that, I go into Honduras. This is what the country looks like. Mosquitoes love me. We could put 20,000 of us in the stadium and one mosquito and he's going to bite me twice. I tromped around the jungle for 2 weeks with this on and didn't have a single bug bite. So effectiveness for me, and it's not going to work everybody exactly the same, but effectiveness, it is very effective. There are other options out there, not as well proven, not saying they're not as effective, but not as well proven. Avon Skin So Soft Skin Lotion actually is a natural repellent. I'm not a big fan of it, quite frankly, but you can get the clip-on stuff and you can get the bracelets. You're just not going to get that high level of effectiveness. But I do want you to know, for climbers, I used to be a big repeller and climber. This is bad news because it will actually erode the ropes. So there are some people that actually use this to clean their headlights when they get foggy. They'll spray this on, and it actually eats away some of that stuff. So
when Kevin's not around, I'll give you my unfiltered version.
I'm trying to be
You're good.
diplomatic.
You're being good.
Yes, ma'am.
So that's not good to put on your skin. Like
It is made for that.
It's effective.
It is effective. Now, let me tell you, I put it on when I'm in Honduras. When I'm in Honduras, I put it on 4 times a day. Now, that's excessive. I will say that up front. That is excessive. But I didn't have any bug bites.
But I'm going to be ridiculous here. I'm sorry, Kevin. You are a male and you have had your children. These folks have not had their children.
Understood.
In addition to cancer, it shows birth defects.
It can. That's as well. It can.
There.
And I have, believe me, I have daughters, and my daughters, they use it a little less heavily than I do. But you need to have something. And if you're not going to choose the DEET, then you need to do some really good research about what it is that you're using, and is it as effective or close to it, and is it as caustic, or is it safer?
Whole Foods has some good alternatives.
There's been a couple of different ones, eucalyptus oil based this and that, but I don't have the data to be able to support it. So that's why I can't legally recommend it. But she can say whatever she wants. So having said that, when you're in keto, from a malaria standpoint, it's not going to be necessary. Unfortunately, there's some other things that we're going to talk about that some type of bug repellent is going to be necessary. Before we go to that, let's talk about traveler's diarrhea. That's what nurses love to talk about, is poop and pee. So this is new from, I don't think I had, did I have these last time?
You had some plastic ones.
Okay, so.
Nice catch.
Yeah.
I don't get to throw things at people very often.
What
So.
you eat, he knows what you live on.
So, okay. Traveler's diarrhea comes from bacteria in water, all right? Water, and it's tap water. Now, in deluxe accommodation, there's minimal risk. Now, I don't believe you guys are staying in the deluxe accommodation. I think you're staying in a nice place, but it's not going to be considered deluxe. All right? So bottled water is your friend.
Yes.
All right?
Even to brush teeth.
Oh, yeah, even brush your teeth. In fact, I usually say, what are some other ways you can think of it? Ice, brushing your teeth. Yes, you can sing in the shower as long as your mouth is closed. So I guess that's humming. But I am very forgetful. So when I was in Honduras this last time, I forgot and brushed my teeth with tap water. That day for lunch, we went to a fast food restaurant and I had ice in my drink. That was a rough night. It was a very rough night. So, because I don't want to forget again, I rubber band my toothbrush to a bottle of water. Because then if I forget, it's my own dumb fault. Okay? So that's just one of the tidbits of ways. Plus I'm a little weird. I don't like my toothbrush to lay down. I like it to stand up. So, you can take stuff to treat, but you guys are going to be in a place where should be able to have access to bottled water, either to refill from a 5-gallon type or to buy in the store. I, once again, being the neurotic self that I am, if I recognize a brand in the store, that's what I'm buying. I'm not going to buy one that I don't recognize if there is one. But if I don't recognize one, I'm going to buy one rather than tap water. Okay? So just kind of knowing your risks and everything.
Just a couple quick comments. One is, in the email that I last got from the people who were chartering the boat to us, they said that beverages are not included. The food is all included, but no alcoholic beverages. I thought sodas would be included. They said no sodas. I don't know about bottled water, so you might just in the back of your mind be psychologically prepared to buy some water on the boat if it's not included in the price. And there was something else, but I've forgotten it. So.
Well, I'll pick up on the
Okay.
bottled water. So when you buy a brand that you recognize and you twist off the cap, if you don't hear it click, click,
That
click,
is exactly what I was going
you
to say.
don't want to use that bottle.
It's
because
much cheaper for somebody to just fill up an empty bottle with tap water
And
and
then
try to
resell
sell it
it.
again. So they can buy it from
Especially
street
to
vendors.
dumb Americans. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I had someone try and do that to me in Honduras.
Yeah.
And that was the very first thing I did. Being neurotic, I turn it just a little bit and I hold it up to watch. I want to
Yeah.
make sure that
Yeah.
sucker is sealed.
That's good.
Because and the one that he gave me was not.
Yeah. And
Now, could it have been good water? Sure. I wasn't going to drink it. I handed it back to him and grabbed a different one.
I usually get sparkling. They say with gas is how they do it, and that way you know it's not just regular tap water.
Exactly.
But you get sick from it ruins the trip, so it's worth it.
It can be totally debilitating. Now, luckily for me, I've got a horrible stomach, and so I expected to be out for days. Luckily, I was fine the next day. And I'll talk about some ways to treat and that type of thing. So, in addition to the water, fresh fruits and vegetables are another culprit. So, everybody hold up what you have. Of these 4 fresh fruits and vegetables, now these are categories of fruits and vegetables. Which one is the safest one? Banana. Thick-skinned, peel it, you eat it directly out, you're not touching it. That is a very safe fruit. Now, I don't know what fruits they have there. These are categories, so just think about that, okay? We'll throw this, you can stick it back in there. What's the next safest one? Orange. You are peeling it, and the reason it's not as safe as the banana is because you're discarding it, but your hands have touched the peel, which then touched the meat of the fruit, making it slightly more risky. So what's the next one? Apple. You're either passing something through it to slice it or peel it, or you're biting the skin. Either way, that is a much riskier one. So that leaves us with my friend the lettuce. Obviously, we don't get along very well. All right, but the lettuce is mostly made of water, has lots of nooks and crannies, a great medium for bacteria to grow. So when you're traveling, lettuce is a no-no. I will tell you, everybody who tries and they're going to a developing country end up sick. Hands down. I've not heard of anybody who's successfully had a salad and not gotten sick, unless it was from a real deluxe accommodation.
That's great,
Okay?
yeah, that's great.
So all right, so you can throw those back in the bag and then toss them back up here. So how do you go about eating more than just banana? Well, I think this is new since I last saw it.
Pins and needles.
Absolutely. If I can find it. I recommend carrying something like these little Lysol to goes. Now it sounds gross. Just go with me. You wipe down your banana, or not necessarily your banana, but your orange and your apple. Wipe it down real good. Pour a little bottle of water over it. Rub it around. That's a pretty safe fruit at that point to eat. Now I did the same thing in Honduras with the hand sanitizer because I was desperate for a good apple. We now offer these international travel first aid kits. We surveyed this summer all the other UNC schools, and I'm biased, but we do it better than anybody else. The only tidbit we could get was one school did this. The difference is they charge you $50 for what's in there. We charge you $20. And in there is a thermometer, ibuprofen, Tylenol, Imodium, Pepto-Bismol, Benadryl, Sudafed, 2 packs of these, a Ben's Bugs insect repellent that is carry-on, because the can you cannot carry on. That has to be checked. This can be carried on. It is 30% DEET though, just as my disclaimer. All right, but literally, if you went out to get this on your own, it cost you $55, and our pharmacy will sell it to you for $20. For going to the UK, you probably need 1 per group. If you're going to a developing country, then you're more recommending 1 per person. Now, you don't have to get it. You may say, well, I have all that stuff. One thing to keep in mind when you're packing your stuff and getting ready to go is if the seal is broken, you run a higher risk than a sealed container being confiscated, okay, when you go through customs. Now, I went through customs in Honduras with $10,000 worth of drugs, good drugs, vitamins and that kind of stuff, but nobody smuggles drugs into Honduras, they only smuggle them out. But I did not break any of the seals because I could have gotten it down to 1 duffel bag instead of 2, but I didn't want to run that risk. So keep in mind these are small numbers of different things so that if they do get confiscated, you're not really out much. All right. I just had something else and it left me.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
What would be like the healthiest type of food to eat? Or not
Cooked food?
healthiest, like safest, yes.
Cooked food, well-cooked food. And that's because the heat from cooking process kills the bacteria. So if it's cooked like you would cook it at home or get it from a restaurant, it should be just fine to eat.
So if you had like pasta, you know it's cooked in water?
Sure, because it's boiled.
Okay.
Absolutely. Anything that is going to be brought to a high enough temperature, you can actually drink the tap water as if it's been boiled for, I think it's 2 minutes and 45 seconds or something. So that heat kills that bacteria. Now there are some differences when it comes to a couple of countries, and we'll double check in a minute, but I don't believe Ecuador is. There's some fish that have toxins that the heat does not kill the toxin. And in some cases it can enhance the toxin. But for the most part, from a traveler's diarrhea standpoint, if it's cooked, you're good to go. Or if you can peel it. Now, if someone offered me a banana fruit salad, I wouldn't eat that because I didn't see how they prepared it. You know, did they lay things down and then they cut on it? And other stuff. If I'm preparing it, I would put those 3 fruits in there, no problem, if I was preparing, because I would know that it would be safe. So you can, if you're a vegetarian or, or whatever, you can get by with rice and beans and do just fine without having your fresh stuff. Keeping in mind, you can also have that fresh stuff with the precautions that you take. Any other questions? All right, if you will pass out to them there's one that's a larger card.
Oh, this one? It's underneath it?
Nope.
Oh,
This one. So if you get traveler's diarrhea, which is entirely possible, you could be super, super cautious and get it. All right? So what you need to do then is you need to have something to treat it. And that's what she's passing out. These are the instructions that I used to just tell people, and then people's like, oh, I want to write it down and put it in a Ziploc bag. Okay, well, here, it's there for you. If you get traveler's diarrhea, you want to take 2 tablets of Imodium with your first bout of diarrhea, 1 tablet with each bout after that, and when the diarrhea stops, you stop taking it, because you're only taking it with the diarrhea. All that does is slow the motility of the bowel down. It does nothing to kill the bacteria. So that's when we add either Cipro or azithromycin. Now Cipro, anybody hardcore runners, got to run every day, I'll die if I don't run. Okay. So Cipro is where I really push people towards or recommend unless you have an allergy. Cipro and hardcore runners, when they get old like me, have problems with their Achilles tendon. So I just bring it up because I had a couple of really hardcore marathon runners in a group, and they were freaked out when I told them. So that's what I recommend, and then you take, once you've had 2 to 3 bouts of diarrhea in a 24-hour period, that is technically what traveler's diarrhea is. When traveling, 2 to 3 bouts in a 24-hour period. Then you would start taking Cipro. And you take 1 tablet every 12 hours for 3 days. Now, for the length of time you guys are going to be gone, I would probably do 2 full treatments, just to be extra cautious. And the good news is, whether I do 1 treatment or 2 treatments, it's the same cost. So I might as well give you extra so you have it in case you need it. The reason that we don't do just the Cipro to kill the bacteria is because if you don't slow the motility of the bowel down, the Cipro gets pushed out before you get a chance to actually do anything. All right? So it's kind of a 2-pronged thing. If you're someone that has a really, really weak stomach, or you're really freaked out by this, you could do Pepto-Bismol tablets as a preventative. You take 2 with each meal, 2 at bedtime. I can't tell you whether it works because I'm allergic to Pepto. There are some places that just swear by it. If you don't have stomach problems, okay, and you're smart about how you go about things, then you're probably fine without it. But there are some people who really want that. Once again, cooked foods should be fine. The exception to that is street vendor food. I never recommend street vendor food.
You guys are not allowed to eat street vendor food. I will beat you. And that's recorded.
I got sick from a hot dog vendor in New York City. They're regulated by the health department. You don't know how many bugs have been mixed into it, how it was prepared, how it's been stored. Every year, I know, in the last 5.5 years I've been here, every year someone has done that, and every year at least one person has gotten sick from it.
My little children will not do that. They're not allowed.
Sounds like you better not do that. just throwing that out there. All right, so I do recommend you take that card, put it in a Ziploc bag, put your Imodium with you. Now, you don't have to get Imodium. I do recommend it, but you don't have to. If you'll go ahead and pass out the follow-up medication form.
Kevin, what did you say about Achilles tendons? I'm sorry.
When you get older, when you get older, Cipro for hardcore runners can cause Achilles tendon rupture. Does something, and I don't know if it's true calcification. I used to work in the OR as a orthopedic nurse, and so I've helped repair a few of those. They're brutal. I've never seen it in a young person. Doesn't mean it can't happen, but if they're hardcore runners, I steer them towards azithromycin.
I'd steer them away from running, but that's
I am a poster child for that. Are you kidding me? So I always ask the question because I did have a professor who was a hardcore marathoner, and she's like, never, never, never. And I want to make sure that we give people options.
Yeah.
But if you're not a hardcore runner,
Well, I'm not a hardcore runner, but I've had surgery on both Achilles tendons more than once.
Gotcha.
So yeah.
So for you, I probably stay away from it just to be careful.
Exactly.
Azithromycin, which is on there, so if you go, I can't order stuff for you guys, but you can take that and say, I need 8 tablets, and this is what I need, and it's all right there for you. And that's part of why I do
Cipro
it
is
that way.
great stuff.
Yeah, I like Cipro because it covers more bacteria than azithromycin. It's a much broader spectrum. For instance, I took it with me when I was in Honduras and had an upper respiratory infection. Well, I didn't have it there for that. I had it for traveler's diarrhea, but I took it. And so, you know, there's other benefits, although, take that part off. I'm not supposed to tell you to take it for other things.
No,
Okay?
no.
But, all right, the form that she just filled out, or handed out to you, is something I need back from you. And you can fill it out at some point, doesn't have to be right this second, but let me tell you what you're looking at. The very top section is anti-malarial medicine. If you want to talk to me about anti-malarial medicine because you're a little bit freaked out by that, then mark that I want anti-malarial medicine and right on there I want to talk, okay? Otherwise, just put I decline. The next sheet, or the next section, is going to be the traveler's diarrhea medicine. You're not required to get traveler's diarrhea medicine, but I recommend it. If you mark I want traveler's diarrhea medicine and mark nothing else, you'll get a box of Imodium and you'll get 2 full treatments of Cipro. If you say I only want Imodium, I'm going to say why. But if you say you only want Imodium, then I'll only order the Imodium for you. If you only want the Cipro, I'm going to order the Imodium for you as well, because it's worthless. All right. So keep those things in mind. But I do need. If you say I don't want it, then put I decline. And